Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of books and reading and notebooks and writing to make life better and to feel better too. You'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how it can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebook invitations around particular themes, and you'll meet authors and special guests who'll help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, and I'm back with another episode on how reading and writing can make life better. Today, we are blending two things that I love the most together, reading and journaling. And yes, by the end, you will likely be inspired to run out and grab a brand new notebook for the brand new notebook idea I am going to share later in the episode. Now, recently, I was on the podcast called Sticky Hope. It is a wonderful, beautiful podcast with Ruth and Becca for educators, and I really enjoyed my conversation with them on what restorative reading was and how it could help with educator wellness and ideally seep into the classroom and help students not only with their reading lives, but with their emotional lives as well. They asked me for a really simple definition of what restorative reading was. And you know that I could spend episodes upon episodes talking about how I define restorative reading. But when it comes down to it, restorative reading is this: it's reading that makes you feel better. Full stop. End of story, right? Reading that makes you feel better. That means that it requires a different reading approach than your so-called regular reading life, right? A restorative reading life, when you are reading in order to feel better, means you have to have a lens of feeling better as a result. And that means doing things a little bit differently. Now, there's a couple ways to do that we've talked about. One of them is setting the scene for rest and restoration while you are reading. It's signaling to your nervous system that this is a special time of self-care where we're going to decompress. You may give yourself all sorts of signals that are related to your senses, and ideally, you're reading for a longer stretch of time. 6 minutes, bare minimum, 30 minutes, ideal, enough time to let your nervous system settle and feel better just because you picked up a book. Now, the second way that we dive into a restorative reading life is that it's not just a book that we choose, but the book that we choose to feel better. Whoever we are, wherever we are, and whatever we're going through in this particular season of the calendar and the season of life, there's a book for that. There's a book that can help us feel better, right? Whether it's dealing with relationships, dealing with a life change, trying to figure out how to start a business or maybe start a new hobby or just feel better in our own skin, we can choose books to help us make those kinds of changes in our lives. But that requires a particular stance. And it's a particular stance that we're going to talk about more today, which is reading with an open mind and an open heart, so that you are literally absorbing and learning from the page of your reading life so that your actual life feels better. Now, how do you do that? How do you read with an open mind and heart? It sounds easy enough, but is it? Well, I think so, with one special quality. You have to expect to find something on the page. If you just open a book and think, oh, this will be a nice experience, this will be enjoyable, then maybe it will give you a nudge or give you an opportunity to think about something in your own life differently. But if you open that book and know, I am setting myself up for the best kind of self-care. I am setting myself up with this book choice to learn things that can help me feel better. You will follow through generally on that expectation. You find what you look for. So maybe it's a quote on the page that just makes you stop and consider something going on in your own life. Maybe it's a feeling, could be a positive feeling, often can be a negative feeling as well. It's a feeling that you need to unpack. Why do I feel this way about the character? Why am I angry at the author for doing that right now? Those feelings often help us uncover things about our own lives. But it's the third one I really want to focus on today, which are the nudges. The nudges, the whispers, the whatever you want to call them, the goosebumps, something that you get when you are reading that gives you an idea for your own life, right? I love these nudges. You know that I call them inspired action, right? When you read, your reading, especially your restorative reading, sparks you to think or do or try something different. Those little sparks are called nudges. And today I want to give you a strategy to start expecting, to start looking for, and to start doing something about those nudges. And that something is journaling. Not long journaling, not long-winded journaling, not even sentences or paragraphs or lots of word on a page, but these quick opportunities to journal, to notice, to name, to note, to track, to hold on to those nudges in, yes, a nudge notebook. I told you it was coming. I invented a new notebook. You're welcome. Here is your permission slip to go get one and to try it in your own reading life. Now, what is a nudge notebook? It's not a reading log, but I guess it could be part of one. It's not a reading response journal, but I guess it could be part of one, right? A nudge notebook, at least to me, it captures those nudges that I get when I'm reading. Now, if you've read Big Magic by Liz Gilbert, you know that she embraces this idea of nudges or whispers or ideas that float by you. And they whisper in your ear or they tap you on your shoulder. If you don't listen to them, sometimes they get stronger and they come in different opportunities. And if you keep ignoring them, they will go away. They will whisper to someone else, tap someone else on the shoulder, and maybe they will take off with the $1,000,000 idea that you were too scared to think of. Those nudges are important to listen to. Right? Even if you decide that they are not worth pursuing, Liz explains so beautifully in her book that life is about listening to them and figuring out what might be the next thing for you. So, a nudge notebook that helps you pay attention to those nudges that you get while you're reading could be just the thing you need to kick your restorative reading life up a notch. Now, in my mind, my nudge book notebook is little, but yours could be big. It is a separate notebook because you know I love separate notebooks for different reasons, but it could be part of a regular notebook you already have. It could be part of your reading log. It really could be whatever you want, but in my mind, it's going to be a separate little notebook because I want it to be special. And I want it to be a signal that when I place it next to the book that I'm reading, I'm expecting to get nudges that are going to make me feel better and live better. So in that notebook, I open it up and I put the title and the author of the book that I'm reading at the top. Now, why do you need to do this? You're setting yourself up with the expectation that in this particular book of this title written by this author, I'm going to find something that was meant for me. Now, sure, you could just have a notebook close by and say to yourself, if I get a nudge, I'll do something with it and I'll note it down. But by putting that title and author on the page, you are setting yourself up to look more carefully for those nudges. So what do those nudges look like? It could be writing a quote down that made you stop. As we talked about already, it could be a feeling that you just want to jot down that you had so that you can perhaps unpack it later. Maybe it's a question you have about the book, about the story, about the author, about a concept or an idea inside that you want to head to Google later. Maybe it is writing down a little nudge or an idea. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I could investigate that. Maybe I could bake that cake. Maybe I could go to that place. Maybe I could do that thing. Big nudges, little nudges, medium nudges, they all go there. It could even be a little to-do list that reading the book of someone who is spring cleaning their house reminds you that you haven't changed the sheets in that guest bedroom in a long time. And so you have a to-do there. Your nudge notebook is anything that you need it to be based on the nudges you receive as you read the book. Now, they might seem really, really small, but they can turn into action steps. They can turn into inspired action steps that ultimately could lead to little things that make a nice big difference in your life, or even lead to big learning that can make a really big difference in your life. Now, let me give you an example on a recent book that I have read, The Frozen River by Ariel Lawton. So many of us are reading this book. So many of us love this book, have dove deep into this book. And Martha, the main character, has just sat with me ever since. There is one particular section of the book where Martha's home office, way back, X number of years ago, is described in incredible detail. It's old, it's sparse, it's simple, but the descriptions of the herbs that are in little sections in her office, of the flowers that are drying upside down for the next woman who needs them, of the notebooks and journals that she keeps that are stacked there, of the ink and the inkwells that are there. It is just the most beautiful description, and I could not get it out of my head. And so when I went to my home office and I looked around, I went, oh, Martha would be very disappointed. So I just took a couple of minutes. I organized the multiple piles of sticky notes that I have on my desk. I moved off the multiple stacks of books that really didn't need to be there. I was just procrastinating putting away. I got out a couple of nice little touches like a candle, like the coffee cup trivet, and wiped it off and dusted things off and just felt better in my office space because I read that book. Now, I also went down another longer rabbit hole because of that particular section, because I'm just fascinated by flowers and plants and the medicinal uses for them, right? I love using books as medicine. I really love using flowers and herbs and essential oils as medicine too. So I did a few little Google searches based on the herbs and the flowers and the tinctures that she had in her office that were listed. And I just had fun. I had fun learning about them. That learning connected me to a resource from Elena Brower, who is this beautiful soul who does work with plants and essences like this, who also does a lot of work in yoga and meditation. And I found her as a result. I found her course as a result. I found her work as a result. And it has been a beautiful journey since then. Every week, something appears in my inbox that makes me feel better because of the work she shared. I don't know if I would have found her if I did not do that Google search, because I read the book and because I was open to taking action as a result. Right? So that's what I mean of these nudges, that if we follow through on them, first we have to track them though, and then we follow through, that it can make us feel better. And you define what feel better means, right? Could be something related to your health, your wellness, your relationships, your work, your home office, your own learning, whatever it is, it can spark something for you. So in this little nudge notebook, you are listing the nudges, right? The title and the author goes at the top and you list the nudges. Notice I said list. These are brief notes. These are bulleted notes. These are bulleted ideas. This is not something lengthy, because the idea is that you are spending only a few moments jotting the nudge down and then spending the majority of your time in doing whatever the nudge was. Now, if you have something that shows up as a nudge that you need to unpack, you need to unpack it in your expressive writing, you need to unpack it in your morning page journal, well, that's wonderful. But your nudge notebook is not the place for that. It is just the place for those little tiny powerful nudges that you get in your reading life. Now, some of those nudges you might write down and then decide, yeah, you know what? It's not really a nudge for me right now. I thought maybe it was, but No, I've just decided that I'm going to let that nudge go on to someone else. But here's the thing that was happening to me. I was jotting down these nudges, and certain nudges kept showing up. The same ones over and over and over again. And the nudge notebook gave me a reason to unpack it, gave me a reason to dive into it even more. What is it about these collection of nudges that are showing me changes I need to make in my relationships? What is it about this collection of nudges that is showing me maybe my work life could shift a little bit? When you see those patterns over time, and you can only see them if you write them down, you just have more opportunities to reflect and make life better. It is this wonderful little evidence book of how reading can literally change your life and be more powerful than you think. Now, disclaimer, this nudge notebook is fairly new for me. I never used to keep track of my nudges alone in a notebook. It would be part of my reading log, or part of my reading journal, or part of my morning pages, or I'd just keep a couple of notes on a Google Keep note so that I didn't lose those nudges. But what I'm trying to be more mindful of is keeping track of those nudges for myself, because unfortunately, you get the nudge, you think you won't forget, and you do. And you might lose out on something that was fun or felt good because you didn't write it down. Now, of course, I also want to prove to you how wonderful a nudge notebook is, or just how wonderful listening to those nudges from your reading life are. And so this is my way of holding myself accountable to collect evidence of this, to then share that evidence with you and convince you that not only do you need a nudge notebook as well, but this whole idea of a restorative reading life, it's a thing and it works. And it's just another layer of evidence to give yourself permission to dive into it. So I hope that I have convinced you. I hope you're going to run right out to your favorite stationery store, buy the notebook that feels right for you, or if not a notebook, find a place that feels right and feels opportunistic for you to start your own nudge notebook. You can find pictures of my nudge notebook pretty soon on Substack. You could go to elitlife.substack.com. And you can also tell me about your nudge notebooks and what you're thinking about around it. Find me at the show notes at elitlife.com. Find me on social media at AffinitoLit, or click that audio button and just tell me what you think right now in the moment. A nudge notebook could be just what you need in order to really sink into a beautiful restorative reading life. Again, if you want more, if you want to see the details of my nudge notebooks to come, make sure you join me on Substack. You can sign up for my private community. You get book calendars, book clubs, extra bonus posts, and sneak peeks into the behind the scenes of the podcast of what it actually looks like in my reading life for just $5 a month. We've got the most beautiful bookish community, I think, on the internet. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Go to the stationery store right now, and I will see you next week in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned on the episode in the show notes and at elitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Substack community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you'll get instant access to all of the previous content, too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish communities too. Thanks for listening.